We have with us Mr. Vidushpat Singhania, who is the managing partner of Crida Legal, which is a sports law firm based in New Delhi. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
So, what inclined you towards sports law and how did Crida Legal come into existence?
Actually, I was always interested in sports, and during college, I was looking for a course actually pertaining to art law for my mom and to understand what art aspects in art is all about. And that's the time I came about something called sports law. This is way back in 2004 or 5. I did a lot of research on it. I undertook a course in South Africa on sports law. Then I worked in the TMC Asser in Netherlands, and then I knew, okay, this is my calling and I need to pursue this going forward. So yeah, that's how about sports law came about for me.
That's great. So, like having this kind of thing from 2008 when nothing was like sports law in India.
2004.
Sorry, 2004.
Yeah.
That's actually very. How does it feel to have shifted from a single room chamber to a full fledged office now? How has the Crida legal team evolved over time?
So I was working with Lakshmi Kumar and Sridharan. I was heading the sports law department, and I decided that I think this is the appropriate time to take a leap of faith and start my own practice, start my own office. At that point of time, we were called Ludus Legal. We rebranded later as Crida Legal due to certain intellectual property right issues. Uh, Obviously, when you start, you are extremely scared, as all lawyers are. You don't know how much money you want to make, whether anybody would come to you, whether you will have clients. So initially, I started with a home office, uh, demarcating a room from at my home as an office, and slowly I got the confidence. We got a lot of clients showed faith in me, and as the practice grew, I knew that we needed a bigger office. We need to hire more people, and therefore we moved from a single room to a whole big office of 2,400 square meters now.
So, like in general, when we are looking for some book on sports law in India, the only name we get is Law and Sports in India, which is based on development issues and challenges. So, tell us about this book that you have co authored with Justice Mukul Mutkal and how is the second edition different from the first one?
So first edition, Justice Mudgal and me wrote in. It was published in 2010. We started writing it in 2008, and that time IPL was just in its nascent stages. There was no other sport which was prominently or commercially viable. There was no leagues, so it was a very limited scope. Even anti-doping, the Nevada Code of 2009 had just come in. The earlier code was still very restrictive. The tribunal, the anti-doping tribunal, had just been set up in that sense, and it was all in a development phase. Even the National Sports Bill was the first draft was prepared by us in 2011. That is after the publication of the first book. So that time we were really talking about what could be, and now the second edition is what is that has happened between 2010 to now, and what future could hold going forward.
So, your articles have also been published at various national and international platforms. Like, how would you advise somebody who is writing for an international publication? What perspective should one consider while differentiating between an international perspective and national perspective?
I think what all young authors need to do is to first, if they are wanting to tackle a problem, first read the international jurisdiction, international journal articles on that. That will give you a broad perspective of what the ambit of the problem is. Jot down the points that you want to take up. If you are writing from India, you should always, in my personal opinion, you should always have some kind of an Indian perspective. That is what gives the USP to your article. So join or understand what the international articles are saying, put them in the Indian perspective, and then give the Indian aspect as well within your article, keeping an international view, so that what you are saying is also applicable internationally and has a certain affiliation or a certain link to the Indian perspective. We are all Indian qualified lawyers unless you get somebody who's a foreign qualified lawyer.
So, you have appeared in a lot of doping cases, and doping is an area where you not only focus on the legal regulations but also are required to have substantial knowledge on the medical issues that are involved in the cases. How do you prepare yourself for such arguments?
I think the first is you try to understand from the client what exactly has happened and understand the timelines. Also, you need to understand the doping control form, understand what the levels are of the whatever substance are, to see whether the client's story collaborates with the actual evidence that you are available with you. If for the first collaboration takes place, only then you decide that yes, now we need to prepare our case based on our arguments on the NADA code. You identify the code and you prepare your brief arguments based on that. You get the documents and you file it based on that.
So tell us about your association with the Olympic Gold Quest. Like how did it help you personally, and how do you intend to take it further to educate the athletes?
So I don't have any formal affiliation with Olympic Gold Quest.
Okay.
Viren Raskinna, who is the CEO, is a good friend, and we regularly talk. We are one part of a number of committees like the National Sports Bill Committee. Uh, so we generally talk about sports issues. And at that point of time, I keep talking to him and I keep mentioning before Olympics, okay, the players need to have a dispute resolution, they need to have a format, and similarly for social media guidelines. We said that these are social media guidelines that the IOC has come out with, and he simply said, our players are not aware, so why don't you come and give a lecture to us on this aspect. So that's the kind of affiliation I have. I regularly keep consulting if a player is in problem, he needs a legal notice to be drafted, or certain just legal help or advice. I generally give that to them. There's no consideration in that.
That's really commendable. So, this sheds some light on the legality of the online gaming companies which are operating in India. Like, are such companies allowed to establish an office in India under the Indian laws?
So online gaming is a huge and a wide aspect. I don't know whether it is foreign or local, because we don't. The structure of companies, most of them are owned in India because of FDI issues. They do have certain aspects of foreign investment. Now the FDI's policy says that any investment in betting and gambling is prohibited. However, betting and gambling has been construed by Supreme Court of India in the Satyanarayan case as games of chance and not games of skill. In fact, most gambling acts, except I think Odisha and Assam, the state acts, have an exception for game of skill. So, most online companies are either offering rummy or poker services within India. Legally, I don't think they can offer any other services which has not been classified as a game of skill. All those will be in the grey area. Most of these poker and rummy companies have got the software in, like any other software import, because once it is not within the ambit of betting and gambling, it is like any other import and export of services. And that's how they've got the services and IPR in, and they're offering the services within India.
Okay, sir. So, what is the Bhutan online gaming tender, and how is the CRIDA legal team involved in the same?
So the government of Bhutan through DHI had floated a tender for advising them or on as consultants on how they can run online gaming operations from their country. And to that extent, IACS Consulting, which is a lead partner in the consortium, was bidding for the tender. That is Mr. Aditya Oberoi from IACS Consultancy, and he asked me to bid as a legal consultant with them. And we bid, and God has been kind that we won the tender. Obviously, a lot of the details that we are going to give to them is confidential, so I can't discuss more of that in detail.
Okay, sir. So, how would you comment on the recent developments which have been taking place in the sports administration in India, especially pertaining to the whole BCCI episode and as well as the IOA affairs in India?
I think India needs good governance in sports. Nobody is questioning the autonomy of sports organizations. The problem that has happened is that the autonomy has been exploited to the extent that the general public and the sports persons are absolutely have become against the sports administration, which cannot be the case. Sports is not dependent on the administrator. The sport is dependent on the sports persons. They are the cog based on which the whole sports movement is based. If you keep them out of the sports administration, then how will your cog of governance run? And that's exactly what has happened. And I think the government of India came out with the National Sports Development Code in 2011. There were limited enforcement of that. The government was trying to enforce it, but there was limited enforcement. Now, with the BCCI judgment, they've got a lot of backing from the Supreme Court as well. In the meantime, what has happened is the Delhi High Court has also upheld the validity of the National Sports Code. So good governance principles are only getting imbibed in the sports organization. Domestically, it is being pushed by the Supreme Court and the sports ministry. Internationally, most of these sports bodies do their own internal governance review. So, Justice Mudgal is a part of the AFC governance review and the FIFA governance review. I have been helping him in the AFC governance review. Similarly, he was a part of the ICC governance review, and I've helped him there as well. So, what happens is the international body are looking at governance review on their own. In India, what is happening is because they're not looking at it on their own, they are being pushed by the government or the courts.
Okay, sir. So the last and the most important question. So sports law is something which is not a part of the curriculum as of now across law schools in India. How would you advise a law student who wishes to pursue a career in sports law? What is the scope in this field, like in India and also in abroad?
So there are a number of courses now, I think from what I understand, that have sprung up. I think mylaw.net offers some course. I think GNLU is looking at offering some course. And I think Tata Group is offering some course in Calcutta on sports. Some courses are being offered in Bombay as well. And a lot of universities are looking at offering. So I don't think it is that no curriculum is available. I am aware of it because I was a part of the committee that was constituted by the Ministry of Human Resources to integrate sports and sports law education in the higher education stream, that is in universities. So it is very much in the pipeline. Taking that, I think what is most important is one is the theory which you will learn from courses, but you need to intern with people who are engaged in the sports aspects. And also try to attend conferences, be it India and be it abroad, where you will get a lot of exposure. If you can obviously get an internship with a foreign law firm which is doing sports law, that is the best thing that you can really do. I think that is the thing. You have to learn as well as develop your skills with internships.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable insights. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.